Welcome everyone, I am the Depressed Eeyore, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 7. This is the last week for point matches, so this will be the last match for the season for me. Some changes to the box. I went ahead and dropped Sheltier and Young Jessica, and went ahead and re-picked up Subame and Toa. Toa is mainly just because she has long legs, and does have some guard bypassing potential. And I also I wanted to grab another assassin as well, since I tend to be very single target based. I needed something that can get past Hilda, as well as any other tough tanks that get in my way. Unfortunately, Sheltier just isn't as unique as she is. She unfortunately is not very good against the current meta, especially with Bernhardt kind of beyond the rise right now. Subame does have her exclusive helmet, which will give her some additional mobility. This will be my first time testing her out with the helmet. Previously, I used her prior to her having the helmet, and she unfortunately did not perform very well in those matches. I don't think I ever won a single match using her before. And then Toa, we've had experience with her, and she generally, in most of the matches I've used her, and she actually does rather well. Anyway. The other change is I started using Twilight Stars. I have one on Zerida and I have one on Subame. Pretty much is just to ensure I can break things like Shrine Maidens and Last Rites. Anyway, this match is in the earliest time bracket again, so I'm going to blame some of my mistakes on fatigue, but this match was definitely very messy. So just be forewarned, you're going to see a lot of dumb mistakes in this one. Anyway, my opponent has kind of a little mix of everything. Some assassins, some powerful single targets, some AoE. It's a box I generally prefer, just simply because it's something I have a little bit more control over in a band pick. It is filled with a lot of characters I don't like dealing with, though, so let's go ahead and get that started. My opponent got rid of Illustrial, which is pretty much almost a common thing where they ban Illustrial on nearly every map now. I ban Ares, because it's Ares. And went ahead and grabbed Hilda. They went ahead and started banning my legs and my assassin. I have yet to actually be able to use Helena in a match. Obviously, she's very popular. She was very popular in Apex, multiple Apex seasons in China, and she's kind of been. I'm assuming she's going to be used in the finals matches that are upcoming. Anyway, my opponent does take Hilda. Hilda's definitely been a problem, mainly because she can reflect so much damage, and she usually has Thorns, which just reflects even more damage. I went ahead and banned Rian and Himiko. Himiko is just not something I can deal with, and Rian, I can sometimes deal with them if there wasn't such a powerful tank. So I went ahead and just got that out of the way. The rest of this isn't too bad. Even Zerida's not that bad anymore. I'm mostly concerned about Tensei Jessica at this point, as well as Yulia and Juggler. Speaking of, I finally got to use Tensei Jessica. So again, going after my legs and my assassins, and my opponent went straight for her assassin. At this point, I got rid of any potential teleporters, which also got rid of one of the healers, which was a little helpful as well. I went ahead and grabbed Subame because I wanted to test her out. She was also kind of my only character that can guard bypass besides Patsier. My opponent did ban Patsier, though I don't know why. I mean, there's not very many male characters left in the box, and most of them aren't that big of a threat anyway. Well, except for Juggler, I guess. Takes Yulia, and I don't like fighting Yulia because she has so many self-resing capabilities. And I don't do AoE, so Yulia is actually rather dangerous for me. I went ahead and took Florentia at this point. I was a little concerned about picking Florentia because I did have 4 healers left, so I was tempted to take Naomi just to ensure I have more power. In hindsight, I think I should have taken Naomi. I do like having extra actions though, so that's usually why I tend to favor Florentia and her utility. So unfortunately, this leaves me with either a spare healer or a spare tank. And then I, of course, went after the rest of the act agains on their side, so they don't have any act agains. And it forced my opponent to go ahead and take Rose and CL. So I went ahead and banned Juggler and Delit. Delit is usually swords, which can be very dangerous for Hilda, and Juggler can also negate guard, so I didn't want to deal with any of that nonsense. And so I take Sophia. And they take Old Lanius. Alright. So right off the bat, one thing to note about my opponent is the only AoE they have is from Old Landias, which means it's pretty safe for me to actually move forward with Subame and immediately activate her stealth. Now the way her helmet works is every time, I believe it always gives her plus 15% crit, or at least it gives it while she's stealthed, and at the end of every turn, or at the end of every action, if she's stealthed, she will get a stackable mobility buff that can stack up to 2 times. It also could stack with any other mobility buffs, such as Rush from Florentia, or a Tenyo Breeze will also stack with it, as well as the Breeze enchant itself. So that's kind of the way to help get her some more additional mobility. It does have a little bit of a ramp up. Also, if you're not stealth and you're not reapplying the stealth, you'll eventually lose your mobility. So it's something to be aware of. As for what she's equipped with, she does have Instant Flash, Killing Machine, and Quickstep. Instant Flash allows her to get First Strike, which is pretty helpful, but only if she's at 90% health or above. And then, of course, her Quickstep will allow her to move some extra mobility, and then her 3C will allow her to ignore guard and do a lot of damage. And then, potentially, if she gets a kill, she can back away and instantly reapply Stealth. Light of Genesis, kind of my standard build. To be honest, I think I should have went with something other than Holy Light. My opponent, I already have 2 healers, and if I had taken something like, I don't know, Free Strike, I probably would have been able to punch through Hilda a lot easier. Or I could have went Lightning Bolt for Yulia, but really the big issue here is punching through Hilda's rather powerful tankiness and stuff. Florentia, nothing too special, kind of my standard support. Healing type, and then of course Sophia is my standard heal with Rewind. And then of course Hilda, nothing too special, it's stuff you've seen before. Crystal Molders with War Goddess. There is a ranged version of this passive, but it only works against physical range and not magic range. And since Yulia of course does melee attacks, it'll at least work on her. Anyway, my opponent did not bring a faction buff with Zerida, instead brought a Killing Blow. She's going to be relying on a faction buff from Old Landias here. Yulia here did go 3C and Faith, and then Rosenseal's full heal with Miracle, and then Hilda went War Goddess, which doesn't really do anything since the only melee character I have is Hilda. Honestly, if she had went the other passive that goes against range physical, that would have actually done a lot of work on Subame. Alright. So, right off the bat, we're just gonna... Main thing I'm trying to do is count steps for Subame and figure out where I can send her to possibly just move in and get a kill. Because if I can take out their Zerida, that means they don't have an assassin. So I did a teleport here, and this is the first of many of my mistakes here. So I did this teleport basing off this position here for Stage of the Trees. And as you can see, that line, no risk of being AoE'd. But I didn't take into account this position, which does put it within AoE range. Then again, in hindsight, if I had teleported here, I would have been able to go to about here, and then go to here, and Zerida could have gotten out of range, in which case I wouldn't be able to do anything. So, you know, it's one thing or the other, I guess. So, instead of putting... This actually did provoke him to use his 3C. It also made it so he didn't actually apply his faction buff yet, which actually helped me out quite a bit. So I did lose some of my... pretty much all my buffs at this point. Since I got hit with an AoE, I'm no longer stealth, which means Zerida can go in for a kill if possible. So there's not much I could do about this except apply a faction buff. Which unfortunately, Hilda's faction buff isn't super defensive besides the standard buffs. Yeah, it's based off skills. Actually, no, it increases counterattack damage, so it actually did help. So that was the... so my opponent did have a Twilight Star. Both sides critted each other, but mine critted better. Kind of put in perspective. So I was at 74% health, which means I couldn't do instant flash. The big difference I think was troops. My troops were tankier. Yeah, they had higher defense. Overall, I was in mountains, so that gave me a bunch of other bonuses. Also, I had a increased chance of crit and other good stuff like that. And overall, I just had higher stats. The only thing that Zerda beat me in was defense, of all things. So that kind of helped me out. Also, anytime the more enemies that go near Tsubame, the stronger her attack and skill go up. So she had one person nearby already, so her moving into a range to attack actually buffed her attack and skill as well. So pretty crazy stuff. Anyway, just to show that off again. I think I have last rights on Tsubame, but it doesn't matter since there's Twilight Star. But yeah, I was actually really surprised. My opponent was too. She emoted, and I did too. So with this, I got rid of the assassin despite my mistake, which is good. I wasn't really paying attention at this point, so I didn't know if my opponent had procced a clock on the 3C from Old Lanius, but he apparently didn't. That being said, my opponent could have went in for a kill, because Hilda was actually Tenyo breezed at the moment, so there was actually nothing stopping Hilda from moving in and just killing Tsubame. And for the most part, I wouldn't have been able to do much about it. My opponent has all self-reses. Right now, Rosenseal doesn't have a self-res yet, but once our 3C goes up, that's going to be an issue as well. And those reses really messed with my game, to say the least. In any case, since my opponent decided to not kill Tsubame, I went ahead and put up a guard buff. Just trying to top off at this point. So I went ahead and did Sunday Strike on Hilda. In hindsight, I think I should have possibly done it on Tsubame instead and try to just get a kill, because I think that was the biggest issue overall as a theme of my mistakes. Is I was very reluctant to actually try to kill anything because everything could self-res. But what I should have been doing is trying to pump out as many killing blows as possible. Because anytime I, force them to self-res, they're going to be at low health anyway. And in that case, that would force my opponent to actually have to devote, effort to actually doing heals and things like that. But unfortunately, I was playing super overly cautious and defensive, and it's definitely going to come back and bite me. So yeah, I just moved around and teleported. And I started picking away at Hilda. So yeah, even with a free strike, I probably wouldn't have gotten kill, but it would have definitely done more damage. At the same time, free strike could have also killed her because of things like thorns, so maybe it was a good trade anyway. Also with the Holy Light, at least I can re-heal myself from the reflected damage. Alright, so Yulia's in action. So yeah, it's all magic damage, so it does pretty good damage against Hilda, but her troops are cavalry, so that does reduce the damage by like 30% or so. So at this point I do Light's Embrace. This does have the advantage. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to kill. So the big issue right now is Yulia is negating my Hilda's guard. Now the only real threat here is Sage of the Trees, really. I do get hit by Hilda here. Hilda, of course, got another Tenuous Breeze, by the way, which is her second one. Also, I believe I used Rewind earlier. That was just really just to refresh everything and get that out of the way. Also, both my opponents have those hammers that heal as an active after effect of attacking. So I used her move again to get away, to get away from Yulia here. I should have done her 3C at this point and got one of the kills out of the way, but I was dumb. So as you can see, that just kind of cost me. Yeah, the big issue is I didn't take advantage of my assassin like I should have. At least not as... I should have taken every opportunity is what I'm trying to say here. I guess the big issue is Tsubame's 3C has a 4-turn cooldown. So after I use that, I don't actually have any way of bypassing guard. Oh my god, I nearly killed myself with that attack, but I did at least I did get rid of her self-res. But I did do something stupid here anyway, which was I didn't back away. So I moved here, of all places, thinking, oh, Yulia won't be able to, you know... She'll have to move if she wants to attack Light of Genesis, but she actually has her 3C, and her 3C can be attacked at range. So she can actually negate guard and attack at the same time, which is going to cost me right about now. So with this, it's going to kill, and it's also going to refresh. It's going to refresh her cooldown for her 3C as well. Yeah, that also caught her back up on damage as well. So we're nearly tied on damage now, and we're 4-4 now. And my opponent has more attackers than I do at this point. I have 2 healers, essentially, and then Tsubame. But I do what I can. My troops do get buffed when I'm at 100% life with Florentia here, so I do a little bit of damage. Some of it gets reflected, which is really annoying. But it does help get my lead a little bit. That's probably the biggest issue about the damage race, is both of us are using Hilda with Crystal Molders. And it's definitely it's making the damage race a lot closer, because essentially we're getting free damage from each other. Did I lose my defense buff? Is that what happened here? Probably. Is it because of higher attack? I'm just seeing how my crystal molders are maxed, by the way. Like, stat-wise, they're completely maxed. So I'm just seeing why their defense is higher. I'm not sure why. Might even that out some, but still. What's... Oh, is it from... Yeah, I'm trying to see what's doing it, but I can't find it. Yeah, no idea. I'm not going to worry about it. So I move up here. This allowed me to reapply stealth and get some additional movement. Alright. So regular attack. I procced Thorns, so that's I reflected even more damage on top of the Crystal Molders. I also had advantage against our troops. And so she actually threw away one of her lives. But she has, you know, 3 of them, so as long as her HP stays at a certain percentage, she's always going to self-res. So I procced Thorns quite a bit in this one, so I can't really complain when my opponent also procced Thorns. That silence is kind of annoying because it's essentially dispelling buffs. So I move up here, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put Rush on Tsubame. Because what I was also keeping track of was how many turns Rosenseal's 3C had left, and it wore off. And so she doesn't have self-res, and so I can move in. Daybreak will, of course, break the Shrine Maidens. I can do Killing Machine and take out their healer. It doesn't really matter too much because they have so much passive healing that they can actually survive without a healer. So at this point, we're going to be trying to take the center. So, doing a little bit of damage, nothing. Yeah. Get a little extra damage. Because the big issue, of course, as far as the damage race is concerned, is old Landius' 3C will eventually go off cooldown. She kills herself again. So yeah, even though it's doing a lot of damage, she's reflecting so much damage back into herself that she's actually not... That essentially only gave her a gain of about 6,000 damage. Which is probably the only reason why I'm still in this damage race here. So I'm doing Sudden Strike so I can go ahead and get Hilda into the center. And I went ahead and moved here just to go ahead and get some damage in. Her attacks is physical, so Crystal Molders won't reflect it, and Thorns didn't proc that time. So yeah, that exchange hurt a lot. Like, there's no way they're going to be able to kill Hilda. It's just a matter of trying to win the damage race here. Since, like I said, I wasn't taking advantage of the fact I had an assassin as much as I should. Also, if I had characters like Florentia providing rush, I should have also considered not taking her her quick step. Instead, I should have taken her other guard bypassing attack that only had a 2-turn cooldown. If I had done something like that, I would have been able to be a lot more aggressive and just kind of kill at my leisure. So like I said, I was too conservative with her 3C because it had such a long cooldown because there's so many self-reses, and that made it so I was not doing as much damage as I should. Also, I mean, with the fact that Yulia was killing herself so much, that could have also put me in a situation where I would have actually eventually finished off Yulia, or forced my opponent to be a lot more conservative on their side instead. But instead, I was just being really overly cautious. I mean, part of it could have been also fatigue, but I usually play very cautiously in general. And I ended up doing something stupid here, and proc Thorns. So if I proc Thorns, I lose first strike, and that's the big issue. So I might go ahead and get Rewind up and running again. This time I didn't proc Thorns. Getting some free hits in. She's actually doing okay damage. And it's free damage, so I don't have to worry about reflection and stuff like that. So that's kind of helping me keep up as far as the damage is concerned. But what have also, kept me up, kept me in the lead damage-wise would have been just to take out one of these two characters with a 3C, because I would have had first strike because I have higher skill. But I didn't do that. So Godly Menace means I don't have guard. And I decided to attack. And this actually is going to ruin me a bit. So, did some good damage, but I no longer have first strike, and I don't have guard. So my opponent can go for the kill for that. So the only good thing is now I only have 3 characters, so I don't have to worry about sacrificing someone to the mist. But at this point I don't really have any DPS anymore. Yeah, Old Lady's actually does decent damage even with just regular attack. And he actually ignores melee penalty as well, which is ridiculous. So doing little bits of damage. It's essentially every attack is giving me about 2k extra damage. Which every bit's going to count right now, because I'm only ahead by about 40,000. So full HP Florentia, and I'm immune to fixed damage. So tons of damage, but not enough to kill. And now she doesn't have her she doesn't have guard negation going anymore. But just in case, I'm gonna top off. So 2 turns left. Both tanks are just passing their turns essentially, just to refresh, getting passive heals when possible. And as you can see, the damage to race is closing in because I don't really have any DPS, and I have to keep Hilda alive. So I procced Thorns, and I procced my armor. So that actually, that didn't give her much of a lead, and now she's down. She no longer has any reses. So if I had actually, used Tsubame to actually, kill her, prior to this, that would have been it. So at this point, my opponent's 3C should definitely be off cooldown at this point. And this is the last turn. I don't know if my opponent misclicked, but he fired. My opponent fired to the left. Did about 6,000 damage. If my opponent had pointed it down, it would have done another at least 6,000 damage to each of these characters, which would have been another 12,000 damage, which would have put them in the lead. So that should have been victory at that point, or at the very least, it would have forced me to try to attack a bunch of times. I don't know what my opponent was trying to do, because you can't push. I mean, and even pushing doesn't matter because it's the last turn, so, and miss doesn't count towards damage. So yeah, right now this is what we're sitting at. So if the shot was pointed down and it done maybe another 6,000 damage to each of these characters, and it probably would have done more to Hilda. Yeah, it would have been around a little bit more, to be honest. Which means it would have possibly given them the lead. If that was the case, though, I would have attacked with both Florentia and maybe Sophia. Or at least I would attack with Florentia, and that would have given me some extra damage. But since I'm winning the race at this point, I went ahead and just passed turn, and that got me the win. So this is probably the most damage Hilda's ever done, because and this was all from Thorns and Crystal Molder damage. Like, I never actually attacked with her. It was all reflected damage. And plus the few times that Yulia attacked in melee. Like I said, this match was a mess. Anyone that's familiar with Apex would have been like, what the hell are you doing? And honestly, I did not deserve this win. But I did get the win with Tsubame, which is nice. But yeah, like I said, there was a lot of mistakes. I should have went without Quick Step and taken her her other guard ignoring skill, which I'll go ahead and show that off. Let's go ahead and actually, just to show real quick. Most of the damage, of course, was Yulia. But yeah, I should have taken. Oh, it's a new day. Well, you know that I'm recording this at midnight. Alright, so yeah, Tsubame. She actually has another guard back. Yeah, she has Shadow Raid. Yeah, Shadow Raid, even though it's only 1.3 times damage, it doesn't have any other bonuses like this. It only has a 2-turn cooldown. and that alone would have been more than enough. And since she has first strike, I didn't really have to worry about being killed by like counterattack damage usually. So yeah, if I drop Quick Step for this, I think it would have worked out a lot better. Obviously, the big reason to take Quick Step is because it gets her at 2 extra steps, and she really needs that because she doesn't really have any of the additional mobility that Zerida has. Even with her helmet buff maxed out, she only gets +2 movement from that, while of course Zerida gets +4 from her nonsense. So still, I mean, I did pull off the win, so I guess that is that. I will see about doing a video maybe next week about just the rest of I guess the overview of Apex. To be honest, it kind of just came in wit for me, but as you can see, there's not much time left in it, and I got a 50% win rate, which is not bad. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. I'm the Depressed Dealer. This was Langrisser Mobile Apex, Season 7. See you guys later.